Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 29. I've got Chuck Dahle with me here. He is the CEO and co-founder of Opus Communications. Chuck wants you to take risks on yourself, bet on yourself, invest in yourself, but do what makes you happy? No way. That's the worst advice he's ever heard. You're going to love this conversation with Chuck as we're smoking sticks at Prohibition here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hold tight. We'll be right back. All right, you want to know why? Well, I'll tell you why. My why is to use my presence and my pros to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. Again, to use my presence and my pros to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. And I want to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving by 2030. That's 10 years. That's 100 million people per year. So let's go. Join me in this mission to help equip the world for success and inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving. All right. So we are here, me, and not just myself and I, but I have with me Charles Dahle. He is the GOAT of Green Bay. He is not just the GOAT of Green Bay, but he's also the CEO of Opus Communications. For those who have been following along, we had his counterpart Ryan on recently, which was a lot of fun. But I'm excited to sit down with Charles. We're here at Prohibition. But man, I'm the only one smoking.
Yeah. Yep.
Charles is leaving me hanging here. So.
Yep.
But he said he loves to talk, so there should be enough hot air going around anyway. So
yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to sit down with you, Kyle. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is great. So it's fun. Charles and I were just talking to. It's like we have no idea who each other really is. Mm-hmm. When I sit down with folks, I don't send them the questions in advance. We do spend a few minutes beforehand, kind of give them a roadmap where we're going to go, just for some general expectation. But otherwise, from there, we just dive in. So this is exciting. So as I get to know Charles, you guys are getting to know Charles, which is really, really cool, and vice versa. So man, that said, like, aside from who you probably share this with in your network, our listeners probably have no idea who you are or what you're up to. So give us some context, man. You're born and raised in Green Bay. Like, where are you from? What do you love to do? How'd you get to where you are today? Like, who are you?
Yeah, I was born and raised here in Green Bay, and, when I was a young adult, I kind of bounced around a lot.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Preble.
Oh, nice, okay.
Yep, I graduated in 2009.
Nice.
And, after when I was a young adult, it was kind of, I bounced around. I lived in Iron Mountain, Michigan for a while. I lived in, just some surrounding areas down in Appleton for a short time. Working a lot of kind of odds and end jobs. I kind of, when I was younger, like a lot of young people, I felt kind of lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do for a future and really where I wanted my career to be. So I kind of bounced around. I was all over for a while, but I've been back in Green Bay now for the last 5 years, and love it. You always come back home. So all my family still lives in Green Bay, so I actually have a pretty large family. I've got 3 brothers, 2 sisters, mom and dad, big Irish family, but
we're trying to catch up with you guys. We've got 3 kiddos and 1 on the way, so.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Boy, girl, boy, girl, and then the next will be a girl, so.
Oh, kind of get some balance there, huh?
Yeah. Dude, how is it having brothers? I have 2 sisters, and I was in the middle, so you kind of learn when to just walk away and not say anything,
Yep.
But I was wanted to have brothers like that I could wrestle with and beat up and how was that for you? Did you love having brothers?
I can tell you, I was the oldest brother, so it was kind of. You didn't really appreciate it as much when you were kind of growing up. You see kind of your siblings almost in a competitive type nature. But, I mean, now me and my brothers are very, very close. Like, we ride bikes together. I mean, we do a ton of stuff together. And
Now, when you say ride bikes, like I see a Harley Davidson. When you say bike, you're talking motorcycle.
Yeah. Yep. Motorcycles.
Yeah.
My dad is a big Harley rider.
Cool.
He's been going to Sturgis since like the 80s.
Oh yeah.
So when we got old enough, Dad really pushed us to get bikes, and it's kind of a cool activity that brings the family all together. Whether it's a trip to just a beach somewhere, or a trip that's a little bit further. It's kind of nice to get the family all kind of centered and grounded around like an activity.
That's cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't trade my brothers for the world. In a lot of ways, they're my closest friends now.
Yeah.
Especially when your younger friends kind of come and go. You've got different groups that fade in and fade out, but like your family's always going to be there for you, and that's.
But your sisters are pretty expendable.
Yeah. No.
They listen to this like, what are you getting?
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna get some nasty texts after this airs.
One-star reviews.
Yeah.
That's so awesome, man. Very, very cool. Yeah, I went to Ashwaubenon, graduated from there in 2004. Was out in Minneapolis for a little bit, came back, and so fun, man. Really, really cool. It's amazing. Green Bay's not huge. Sometimes people maybe think because we have the Packers, then we're this big kind of city. They come here and like proper, it's only like 100,000, right? And most of that's residential.
Yep.
And the downtown area is all landlocked by residential neighborhoods, so it's not really, can't really expand.
Yep.
What is expanding is is the residential side of things, and suburbs and things like that kind of being built out. But it's just a really cool place, Great place to raise a family. You could have everything that you want here, but it's accessible, relatively quiet, no traffic, and a lot of exciting things happening in the startup community, and on the tech side of things. It's really, really cool. So
absolutely. And one nice part about my business is that we do. We service businesses nationally, so I get a chance to work with people from all across the country. And what's kind of cool is when you realize the differences between people in different regions. And one thing I can say about Green Bay is that the people here are so nice and friendly. And in a lot of other places they don't have that. And if you don't really get a chance to kind of go to other areas or kind of explore different cities and states, you might take it for granted, but I can tell you that the friendliness and just willingness of people around here to help you out is something that it's not really talked about, but it's a very, very cool thing if you're not used to it or if you've seen kind of the other side of it.
Yeah, or even just people walking down the street will smile and say hi.
Yep.
Very, very different than like in New York City where everyone's just in their zone, or all kind of stuff. So
we have a guy, Steve, who he actually runs LinkedIn Local. I don't know if you've ever checked that out.
What's the last name?
Steve Rodriguez.
Cool. I'll have to connect with that. That'd be great.
Yeah, and he is actually from LA.
Cool.
And he was talking about the culture shock when he came here, and he's like, I'd just be walking down the street and people I didn't even know would say hi to me, and it took him a while to adjust, but now he loves it.
Why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I don't have any money. Get away from me.
Do you want something? Yeah, no.
It is awesome. But that's so cool, man. And growing up in the Shadow Lambeau Field, the community really kind of centers around a lot of ways, and with the Packers, a sense of ownership, the kind of unique ownership structure that Green Bay has versus other NFL teams, and the Packers here have done a lot for the community too, which is really cool. So, but man, it's exciting. It's exciting to hear guys like you. I graduated with Ryan. Just really neat to see guys taking risks, burning the ships, realizing, hey, ships weren't meant for the harbor. They're meant to set sail. Like, let's go conquer some waves. But it's not safe, I know.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome, So it's really cool, man. So I would love to hear just a little bit more about, and from your vantage point, because we got Ryan's take, but I want to hear from you, so what are you doing, man? You're the CEO of Opus Communications. Opus done right?
Yep.
Opus is Latin for business, right?
Yep, so correct. Good memory.
So the idea is that you guys are doing business right, which is cool. I love the idea there. So what does a day look like for you? What is Opus even doing? What problems are they solving in the world? And how'd you get there? Did you always want to be the CEO of a company? Did you always want to start something up? I'm sure you have no problems, and you've had a straight beeline for success and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, give us the overview, sketch it out for us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, I'll start a little bit with Opus, kind of what we do, how we operate, what makes us different than just a lot of other companies who kind of play in the same space. Opus Communications is a third-party agnostic telecom provider, which is basically a fancy way of saying that we have agreements with Comcast, Spectrum, AT&T, basically anybody that you can really think of or name, RingCentral, 8x8, kind of everybody that's in that space. We have agreements with all of these various companies, and what we do is we sit down with business owners and we do a needs assessment. We find out today, what is it that you really need for service? What are your goals in the future? And how can we leverage technology in order to help you achieve these goals and to help protect your bottom line? And because we're third party, we don't really care who you go with. Our only goal is to get you happy and get you kind of what you need. And what makes Opus such a valuable company from a customer's perspective is that we have the same pricing models as the direct reps do. So you don't lose any money by coming to us. Basically what you get is you get guys who have 25 years of experience working in the telecom industry telling you this is what's going to work for what your goals are and this is what isn't, and not having any kind of quotas or hidden agendas or anything kind of like that. We're really able to be an unbiased advocate for you. I say that we sit on your same side of the table and we negotiate for you with these other companies. So that's kind of Opus in a nutshell.
If I can double click on that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, you guys are really, and maybe for our listeners, they might understand like what an insurance broker does.
Yep.
And if it's a good insurance broker, they're going to say exactly what you just said. We don't represent these various, companies and products. We represent you, right? And so, over against a captive agency, maybe like a State Farm or Allstate, and I'm sure they have great products. But if you go to an agent there, that's all you get. You only get those options. If you go to insurance broker, you get a bunch of different options. And even depending on the broker that you go to, it would maybe even vary on the options. But the idea is that the broker is supposed to represent you and give you the best options for your needs. And what I think is really, really cool is you guys are taking, in a sense, kind of that model and applying it to telecom, which is really, really cool in a way that's going to bat for businesses to help them to maximize, just their, maybe maximize isn't the right word, but just to make sure that they're fully equipped for the best bang for their buck. I guess how is that how you would say it, or am I thinking about that rightly?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it spot on. And in fact, an insurance broker is typically like an example that we use that a lot of people can kind of relate to.
Yeah.
And you hit it right on the head. If you go to State Farm, all they can sell you is State Farm stuff. And, maybe that's a good fit for you, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, but maybe it's not. And how would you know?
Exactly.
And obviously the State Farm agent's not going to tell you that it maybe it's not a good fit. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And I mean, hey, look, I'm a sales guy. I've worked in sales. No knock on them. But of course, whatever you're selling is the perfect fit for everybody who walks through that door, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, we could even talk about that too, because it's just like, if you put people first, the money will follow.
Absolutely.
If you put money first, you will never have money or people. It's a really short-term strategy. And you see some folks that we win, but if they're just chasing the dollar at the end of the day, we're human beings. We have a built-in, innate BS detector, right? And we can smell that. We know when we're being sold to. When we know, it's hard to quantify, but we can sense it. Like in our gut, just like this guy's not necessarily for me. And I guess I could go with the product, but and so what you guys are doing is you're with radical transparency. Not you said not. You guys weren't running off of sales incentives or anything like that?
Nope.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Something like that.
Yeah, and so it's like, and you guys don't. If I recall right, you're not making your money off of your clients, right? It's actually, and this is what I think is a really cool piece of the business is, it's actually the providers that are paying you.
Yep.
And so maybe talk a little about like why would a provider want a customer to go through you guys to them and pay you for that? Mm-hmm. What's so valuable about what you guys are doing, not just to a business, but to a provider? Does that question make sense?
Yep, absolutely. And so from the actual provider's perspective, we're important for a few different reasons. One, like I said, we have over 25 years of experience between us in telecom, so we really know what we're talking about, and we really know what our customers are interested in. We all come from AT&T backgrounds, just for example, and they're a company that we do a ton of business with. And so from their perspective, they get people who are very trained, very familiar with the company, the products, the service, and from their perspective, they don't pay us any kind of salary, they don't pay us any benefits. We basically only get paid when we sell their service. And what's a little bit different is that we don't make a commission in the sense that we sell one widget and they pay us X amount of dollars. We're compensated residually. So for every month that you have their service, we continue to get a small amount of money for that. And that works out really well for our customers because we have a vested interest in keeping you happy, making sure you don't have any issues. We call all of our customers quarterly just to check in and say, hey, is everything going well? Because we want you to be happy,
Yeah.
Kind of selfishly because we want to keep getting paid.
Or let's figure out a better option, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's cool. And if I'm hearing you right, those costs don't get passed on to the customer. Like you said earlier, it's not costing them anymore. They now just get to pick and choose and kind of a la carte with their solution versus, hey, I can only do State Farm that. Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. And the residual component is huge for you guys. It seems like it's a really, really awesome model. Yeah,
and what my customers actually like more than just the cost savings that is usually associated with going through us, it's that extra level of accountability.
Yeah.
They know they can go ahead and call us, right? Whereas if you go through a traditional salesperson, after they sell you the service, you're never going to hear from them again, right? And with us, at least they know you can go ahead and you can call Chuck or you can call Ryan, you can call Mike, and these people will pick up the phone and they'll actually work to help you because we do put people first in our business. It's for a lot of different reasons. One, it's the right thing to do. Two, your business has a reputation, and once that goes, you're really out of luck. You start getting a bad reputation for not providing good customer service or something like that. And we live in a world that's so connected now that you start getting those negative types of reviews and can definitely impact your business.
Yeah, I think Warren Buffett said it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to lose it.
Yeah,
and that's so true. That's interesting. So, but I didn't realize, man, I've been calling you Charles, and you just dropped Chuck on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you prefer? Is that what your customers call you?
Oh, I really jump back and forth. It's kind of whatever the mood strikes me at the time, I guess.
When you're doing business, it's Charles. When you're on the bike, it's Chuck. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And even to draw out the picture a little bit more, it's like let's say I had a business and we had a presence in Wisconsin and Illinois and Minnesota, right? And I could go straight to AT&T and just try to find the solution there, right? But there's a couple of problems. One, maybe AT&T is a great fit for me in Wisconsin, but not so much in Illinois or Minnesota. And from AT&T's perspective, maybe Wisconsin is great for them, very profitable.
Yep.
But really from a business perspective, they're probably losing money in Illinois and Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so there's an issue on both sides of the table here, but we want the solution, and the provider wants to be the solution. And so where you guys are coming in to solve problems on both sides of the table, A, for the customer who can get optimal service and coverage wherever they do business. You know, so maybe it's like, and then also for the provider to optimize what's most profitable for them, right? Because that's only going to help them to better serve the customers.
Absolutely.
And so what you guys come to the table and say, okay, instead of just going straight to AT&T and trying to get in this mess of 3 states where you got 1 out of 3 right for both the customer and the provider. I might say like, well, hey, AT&T does Wisconsin really right, but Verizon does Minnesota really right, and Sprint does Illinois really right. And so what you guys can do, and let's just assume for the sake of the example that, Verizon, with their business in Minnesota is very profitable for them. It's a win for them. Sprint is a win in Illinois. And so now you've aligned everything to where everyone on all sides of the table is actually getting optimal service. They're optimizing their business and profitability, which continues that positive cycle of being able to better serve the customers. And it's a win for you guys because you're not passing those costs on to the customers. And because it's more profitable for each of those respective providers, they're willing to pay you a small residual off of that contract. Am I kind of understanding that rightly?
You're 100% spot on. And when you start getting into an issue where you have multiple different providers, we always use the term one throat to choke. Which is you have all of these different providers who are doing different things for you, but you've got one company that you can reach out to, no matter what your issue is, and we go ahead and solve that issue for you. So it's a way to kind of avoid some of that finger pointing, and when you're running a business, you really don't have time to sit on hold with customer service or anything like that. You just want to call one person who gets it figured out. Exactly. I told I did a deal with a customer last week, Friday, who's down in Birmingham, Alabama. They're a cookie manufacturer.
I lived there for a year.
Did you really?
I did, that's a whole other story. Keep on going.
This company does $25 million in cookie sales a year, right?
Tough.
Huge operation. But I told him, I was like, I'd prefer to get you set up and then never need you to call me again. But if you do, I'll be here and I'll pick up. Ideally we would all love to just set people up and then have it just run. But
did they send you cookies?
They actually told me to send them my physical address, and they would.
Come on.
I've gotten T-shirts. I've gotten hats from customers.
A cookie party at Chuck's.
Right. There you go.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
All right. Well, I'm sure it's more than just the cookies, you know, that keep you rolling out of bed every morning and wanting to build a business. That really centers on kind of just radical transparency and really finding a win-win-win across the table between customer and provider, as you guys are kind of brokering that. What is that greater purpose, that greater pulse in your life, Chuck, that keeps you getting up out of bed every morning and giving yourself to this work?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. Ever since I was a kid, my mom said that I always marched to the beat of my own drummer. And, it's something that I've always had, kind of not a better way to do things, but I've always had kind of my way of doing things. And I'm drawn to entrepreneurship because it's really a chance to kind of come up with your own ideas and act on them. I've worked in corporate situations the majority of my life, and the problem is if there's an error in a process or you have a new way of trying to do things, you can't really express yourself as an individual or to kind of take any of that stuff upon yourself because you have policies and bosses and everything like that. And
you're a cog in the wheel. This is what you want you to do. Don't get fancy.
Exactly. We hired you to do X, go do X. And entrepreneurship really gives me a chance to kind of not only impact other people's lives, but to kind of do it my way. And I've always really been drawn to that. I thought it was a very cool concept. I'm sure we'll get into this. This isn't my first time around the entrepreneurial world, and sometimes you gotta learn from your mistakes, kind of pick yourself up and kind of move past it. But even in getting knocked down wasn't enough to kind of shake me away from what I felt was always kind of my path. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good, man. So it's really for you. It's really, I don't know, I mean, would you use the word like fulfilling? Like it'd be hard for you to see yourself almost doing anything else other than getting out there, making some awesome calculated risks and giving your all to go build something.
Yeah.
And it all could come toppling down on you and you don't care because you'll get back up again and do it over again.
Yep.
And life would be not really living for you if you took a different path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really isn't about the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I left a job where I was making over $70,000 a year to go jump in the entrepreneurial world where it's like, frankly, the chance of falling flat are very high. For me, it's the satisfaction of, at the end of the day, kind of looking at a business that you've built and, kind of being able to take a sense of pride in that, I look at it, and it's not about the hours worked. It's not about the money made. It's, I've created something where nothing exists.
Yeah, it's not cool. Like, I don't know. At least I don't know about for you, but for me, there's something about. I mean, it's just true just for guys across the board. But doing something with your hands and building something and then seeing the completion of it, you're like starting a project and just kind of seeing it through. It could be something as simple as like, man, like at our first house, I refinished our cabinets. It was a small house, and all I did was take off the doors and strip them and paint them. And I was out, smoking a cigar in my garage and just loving my life, And it wasn't anything fancy, but there was something about just taking something and using my hands to bring it about. And I think what's so cool is that kind of sets a precedent for like all of life. Like there's so much potential. Once upon a time, buried in the earth was everything needed to build a McDonald's, right? And someone came along and created metal or created this, and it gave us an oven, or found a way to grind or to ground up hamburger, right? You just think about all that. It's just amazing, and how many, probably hundreds of thousands of people were involved in the creation of a single McDonald's, right? Yeah. And it's awesome. We get to be a part of that. Like we get to be a part of that adventure and saying like, what can we create and build in the world and see it through to completion? Like, I love it, man. I'm driven the same way, and hopefully others out there, if they're listening, maybe they're sitting there and their desk or not at work, cranking away and be like, what am I doing here? I don't, I do feel like that cog in the wheel that's just being told I can only do this, and like I think I've got so much more to offer, and the reality is you do, right? You do. And so go figure out what it is that you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and where you can, in a sense, have a sense of fulfillment, and what your economic opportunities are, and go all in, right? Burn the ships on that. But so you were kind of nodding at me when I said,
yeah, absolutely. It's no matter who you are, there is something that you are very good at, and what you need to do is really kind of take a step back and figure out, okay, well, how can I make this a career? Like one thing for me, and I see a kinship with you, is I really love to connect with people. I'm the guy who drives my girlfriend just up a wall because we walk into a gas station and I'll sit and I'll talk to the cashier for 10 minutes, I love meeting people. I love talking with people, and that's kind of what brought me into sales. It's just that natural ability to kind of connect with people and to just sit down and just talk.
You're genuinely interested in who they are. Yeah. Right. This isn't just about, hey, let's get you what you need and get you out of here. It's just like you're real. We bleed the same, right? And that's so cool, man. I love it. I mean, life is too short to, if you're going through life consciously, or going through life conscious of the fact that you're not actually utilizing any of your skills and talents, right? And abilities, or maybe you learn how to do something. Maybe you're just sitting there punching numbers or whatever it is. But like, I don't know. I think jobs are great. Working for someone else is great. I think it also should be, though, something that you choose to do, not a path that's chosen for you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes maybe people aren't really quite sure what they want in life, and they kind of just end up in this path that was chosen for them or laid, or this is just just what you do, this is where you go, and it's way too risky to consider anything else, so just be here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to life than that. There's a lot more risk. It for sure is dangerous, but in a sense, like, who cares? Like, you were created to do really cool things, really incredible things. We have these capacities and talents that we that ought to be used and employed in service to the world around us, right? Really, and when we don't do that, we're robbing ourselves. We're robbing our families. We're robbing the world around us because we're failing to actually use those things. I talk about it in a sense of, like, we have a moral obligation to be successful, and I think successful means taking your skills and talents and abilities and employing them, cultivating them, developing them, and employing them to the best of your ability in service to the world around us. And if we're failing to do that, we're not living, right?
Oh, I agree, 100%. And I think that's a great way to say it. You have a moral obligation to be successful. I like that. I like that a lot. And that's not. I wasn't trying to just knock on people who aren't entrepreneurs. If you find fulfillment in your job, that's great. And people find fulfillment in different aspects, but if you're not finding that sense of fulfillment, if you work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're spending almost a third of your life at something where if you're not getting some sort of joy or some sort of fulfillment out of it, really, what are you doing? That's a third of your life.
And it could be the reason that they don't have any sense of fulfillment is because they're half-assing it. They're not really going all in where they're at, and maybe they'd enjoy work a lot better if they actually gave it their all. Now, to your point earlier, let's say someone does that, well, then you run into, like, the reality of you don't fit the HR cookie cutter here, and hold on, slow down, like you've been in sales, think about like an inside sales role for like for a big company, right? They have that person pegged to only make so much. Maybe there's a small base. Let's say the base is like 40,000, and let's say the plan would get you maybe up to 80,000. Well, what happens when that guy crushes it and makes 120? That's a problem. And unfortunately, and rather than the company seeing that as like, hey, this is an awesome thing, they're going to almost want to try to squeeze that guy back down or get him out because he's creating a problem now for forecasting, for planning, for corporate planning, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't fit that cookie cutter anymore. And that's what you're saying earlier is if you find yourself in that kind of situation, like you're going all in, and they're telling you to, hey, pipe down, Columbo, don't get so fancy. Maybe it's time to go all in somewhere else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And where it comes to kind of half-asking jobs, I mean, I've regretted not trying as hard as I could in different things. I've never regretted trying too hard. I think that if that was your problem, then you're sitting in a good spot. It's always the underachieving. It's always the lack of living up to your potential that causes that kind of negative self-image and kind of negative feelings towards yourself. I think as long as you go out and you give it your all, I mean, you can hold your head high, and say, I did my best. Win, lose, or draw, and I think that's where a lot of people also, kind of success breeds success, effort begets effort. If you kind of get in the mentality and the mindset of, everything that I do, I try my best, that continues to roll on and you build up momentum. But when you start shortchanging yourself in different aspects of life, that follows on too. I think when you start underperforming and underachieving and not living up to your potential, that's a vicious cycle, and it always spirals down.
And I think you just hit on it, how much that weighs on you mentally or psychologically. Sometimes you don't even think about it, but like, that you're not living up to your potential, so now you just become just thwarted with guilt and maybe shame. It's like I'm nothing, I'm no one. Like you said, it really starts to skew your self-image. Well, dude, get out of your own head and go do something, right? Just go all in, right? And it would be best to find something that you'd actually really enjoy going all in on. So it has to do with the process of you got to know what you're good at, you got to know what you enjoy, and then you got to find a way to make money doing that, right? And when you hit that sweet spot, you'll know it, right? And I think this is what people might mean when they say like they don't feel like they've worked a day in their lives. It's not that being up till 2:30 in the morning editing podcast audio or whatever like it was it wasn't because I just had to do it and I hated it or I just love editing podcast audio so much, but I believe in what I do, right? I'm good at what I do. I enjoy what I do, and I think there's great opportunity to impact people in the world, and by putting people first, I think the money's going to follow and it's going to be awesome. And I want to be up at 2 a.m. doing the work, right? When we find that sweet spot in our lives, it doesn't matter how tedious it is, or whatever the busy administrative work that we'd rather not have to do. We still approach it and say, bring it on, baby. Right? Because I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in myself. I believe that I'm making a difference in other people's lives, and life wouldn't be worth living another way, right? I think that's so important. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think kind of with what you described, it's not kind of chasing the work, it's kind of chasing the vision, right? Where's the end goal? And it's like, okay, we're just taking baby steps until you kind of get there, you know? And people who have a vision, like that's what inspires them to keep going, is right, the end result of where you want to be. And I think that, everybody's kind of got that in their head of like where they want to be, where they want to end up, what they want life to look like 10 years from now. And it's like, it's all about kind of just taking those steps towards there. And if you really feel passionate about it, all the kind of sucky admin work that you don't want to do, I mean, it seems easier because this is what I have to do to get there, you know?
You're okay with it. You're I think I've heard it said before, pardon my French, but you're okay with eating shit. Like if that's because exactly what you said, you have that greater vision, and you're willing just to do whatever it takes to bring that about. So that you're gonna have things that you really enjoy, and then even within that vision, you're gonna have things that you'd rather not do or have to do, but you got to do, right? That's awesome, man. And even to your point, maybe part of that vision is people having a bigger vision of who they could be in this world, of their own skills and abilities, right? Maybe they think too small about themselves and what they could be like in 10 years, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's folks I've talked about, like, if you took a year and you wanted to learn like a new skill, and you just did 20 minutes a day for a year, you'd probably be in the top, like, I think it was 5 or 1% of people that that have that skill. You'd rise super fast as far as like your competency in that. If you just devoted to that's just a year, right? Or even think about what you could do after a month. Just 20 minutes a day if you went all in those 20 minutes and be seriously focused. Why? Because most people aren't seriously focused. Most people have given up on themselves. They're not trying to keep on learning. They're not trying to make themselves better or develop their capabilities or talents and all that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing. And so I think sometimes when you just do the math, for people it's like, or like I've talked about before about doing sales math, right? Like, let's say you want to make $100,000 this year. Great. Okay. Well, $100,000. That's so much money. I can, how would I do that in the years? We only have 9 months left. Well, 100,000. Can you find 1,000 people and provide a service or product to them for $100? 1,000 people. There's 7 billion in the world. There's 250,000 in Green Bay. Can you find 1,000 people, and can you give them something valuable enough that they're willing to spend $100 with you because you're giving to them more than what you're taking from the main cash value? Right? Or $1 million math, right? And you just do it. When you just work backwards like that, it's like, and now it doesn't mean that's going to be easy to do, It doesn't seem so difficult or so far-fetched. It doesn't seem some kind of like, fanatical dream. It seems actually within reach. And what if I got guys around me that started thinking the same direction? We built a team, and now we built a company, and now we're called Opus Communications, or whatever it's going to be, And I think helping people just to see themselves with, maybe with the potential and capacity that they actually have, right?
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head. I'm a big believer in setting goals, because goals are something that you can anchor behavior to, and every big goal has a bunch of little smaller goals that you have to hit in order to achieve this big goal. And you talked about it with sales math, right? Did you read Grant Cardone's book?
Uncle G, baby. Yeah. Found it. Oh, I'm a big
there you
Uncle
go.
G fan. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, Grant Cardone talks about how you work backwards on it, and it's like that's really what every goal is, right? Every goal is a series of wins kind of along the way to hit that bigger goal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to, just be in sales. It's with anything. I mean, if you wanted to own a tire shop, right? Like, okay, well, what's the first thing you have to do? Okay, well, after you do that, what's the second thing? It's just if you build a pathway there, and then you just regularly check in on how much progress you're making towards those goals, eventually you will end up where you want to be.
Yeah.
And it's about kind of having the discipline and the kind of dedication and forethought into doing that. And that's actually, a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. But yeah, I mean, it's something that definitely stuck with me. And this go around with Opus is something that I've been very, very committed to.
Yeah.
So
he's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, hey, let's get Uncle G on the show
G.
here, right?
Yeah, right.
I know you're listening to this right now, Uncle G. Actually, I'm pretty sure I've heard him talk about before. The idea of starting with, what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah, man. It's so good. And how often we just need to remind ourselves of our own abilities and capacities.
Mm-hmm.
And, the one thing that Grant talks about in the 10X rule is falling short of, it's better fall short of a bigger goal than a smaller one, right?
Yep.
And maybe you could sum up the entire book just with that one statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That's exciting. You want to make $100,000. Say, well, what happens if you fall short? Then you just make 60.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if your goal is $1 million and then suddenly you fall short, but you hit 600,000, right? Well, which would you rather fall short of? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so cool, man. Good stuff.
I like. Here's another shameless plug for Uncle G. Sell or Be Sold is also a very, very cool book because it just. What I really like about it, and I'm a little biased here because, like I said, I'm a sales guy, is I like how he brings kind of everything back to, the concept of selling and why that's so important in everybody's life. If you're trying to sell an idea or trying to sell yourself to your girlfriend or something, you know what I mean? That everything at the end of the day is kind of is a sales pitch, right? Everything you want in this world is a sales pitch. I love that book. He's got a ton of insight, and I listened to a bunch of his videos, and I was actually a member of Cardone University for a while.
Nice,
yeah. Okay. I know that you talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm a huge proponent of investing in yourself. I'm a big reader.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've done different sales programs and kind of everything.
Yeah.
Even though I had that natural ability to kind of connect with people and talk with people, you always need to make sure that no matter how good you are at something, you're constantly learning and constantly growing and sharpening your skills, no matter how good you are at it.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant still took 1,000 free throw shots a day. It wasn't because he couldn't make one; it was because he could, and he wanted to stay at that level, get better.
Yeah, and Jordan has that famous quote about the reason I've been so successful is because I've failed more. He's taken more shots than anyone else. Yeah, he's missed more shots. Same thing with Babe Ruth, right? He had the strikeout record, maybe he still does, but he also hit the most home runs, right? I mean, it's you gotta go after big things in life. Or even another way to say it was like so you fall short of the $100,000 goal, right? You only fell, and you hit 60,000. You fell short 40,000. Good for you. If the other guy falls short of $1 million goal and only hit 600,000, and he fell short $400,000, well, from a math perspective, oh my gosh, you missed your goal by $400,000, and this guy only missed it by 40,000.
Yep.
Well, which one? Sometimes it's how like HR companies look at things. Like they use data. They're just like, come on, what would you rather fall short of? Like he made 600,000, right, versus 60, right? And so it's kind of like, don't play it safe. Like that's what I love about Grant. He gives you that sort of kick in the teeth, that you need, and it's helpful and puts things. And really self-built. Came from nothing. So go get yourself some Grant Cardone, and Uncle G, if you're listening, let's get you on the show.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
All right, man. So this show is called "What Not to Do," and it centers on learning from the mistakes of others. You wouldn't have had the success that you've experienced in life or that you're currently experiencing and hope to experience, right? Had you done everything wrong. And so I think it's always really good just to, in a sense, look back and just say, you know what? Yeah, I did this right. I did this right. So I'm curious for you, Chuck, like what things, as you're looking back over the course of your career and life to date, what's a few things that you would say, unabashedly, unashamedly so? You tell someone else, hey, I did this right, and you should go do this right. What would you should on someone else,
Yeah. As far as what you should do, I think that you should not be afraid to take risks. I think that you should always bet on yourself, because that's the one area where you're really going to have control.
And that's what you did.
Yeah. Yep. And you can go ahead and you can trust people, you can care about people, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, the only person you can really control and really kind of speak for at the end of the day is yourself. So it's always important to give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And are we going into the failure?
We'll get into that in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, but what are some things that you look back in your life and that you just done right? Decisions you made right? Yeah. And like you just said, you took risks on yourself. Mm-hmm. You bet on yourself. Like, what else comes to mind? Or is there a story, an example there that you'd be open to sharing for folks of like, yeah, you took risks, you bet on yourself, like, this is good stuff?
Yeah, the only other really strong advice that I would have in that area would really be kind of investing in yourself. Like I was always really good about reading and watching videos so I could kind of learn from other people. Grant Cardone is just one of many. Yeah. I've read at this point dozens and dozens of books on sales from a variety of different authors. I've watched a ton of different videos as well. I've been a part of 2 different sales training programs.
Which ones?
Sandler Training, which is actually a local company here. Tony Hoslett, sorry. He's the guy who runs it here in Green Bay, but if you're looking for a local sales trainer who can actually, you have face-to-face classes with the guy, he gives you advice, he runs you through a whole program called the Sandler Training Method. You can go ahead and look it up. It's a great program. And I also was a part of Cardone University too, so that's much more of just kind of videos, and it's not nearly as interactive, but just basically anything that I could to kind of shape the raw talent and the ability that I had into something that I knew I wanted to move forward with as a career.
Yeah, why is that important to invest in yourself? Isn't that what high school is all about in college? Like we learn all that we need to know and then we just go do it?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to bash on anybody here, but I think that the high school curriculum particularly kind of leaves a lot to be desired, because it teaches you a lot of stuff out of a book, but it doesn't really teach you a lot about life. And part of getting older is, figuring out what you don't know and kind of trying to seek out that information. So it's important to invest in yourself, because you're going to have different questions, or you're going to have different things figured out than other people, and maybe still be unclear in different areas. So it's like learning. There's more knowledge out there than any one person can ever have, and what you know kind of shapes your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you learn something different, I mean, that can totally change your trajectory in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of capturing that knowledge is a way of figuring out where you want to go and kind of ultimately where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
So if I would have not spent any time, looking up sales training, I would have, checked out something else and invested that much time in it, I mean, I probably wouldn't have Opus now. My life would probably be radically different.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think education, the main aim of education, if we get it right, it's to really equip us with the tools to learn the rest of our lives. It's not like a stretch or a period of time where you just learn everything that's possible and then we just try to go and apply it all.
Yeah.
Like, education done right is equipping us to learn the rest of our lives. And that's exactly what you're saying. I think a lot of folks have just given up on themselves, right? And they're like, well, I've got my job, I have my college degree, and this is what I'm just going to do the rest of my life. Yeah. Never grow, never learn. Here's the deal. I think if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Or at the least, you're not really living. I don't think there's this kind of like middle ground. Well, you're not really growing, but you're not dying. You're just kind of here, like in some period of stasis. Like, no, like the world is ever changing. Like, you're either growing or dying, right? Yeah. And so that's good, man. High school, college, it's all meant to equip you to continue to learn. Things like you mentioned, the Sandler training method and Cardone U. Things that are equipping you so you can continue to learn. They're teaching you specific things, right? You're going to be able to go and apply, but they're also giving you principles in life and equipping you with other tools so you can keep on learning, right? And exactly what you said, man. Like, we don't have it all figured out. Yeah. Right? Let's learn from others. And that it's getting at the heart of this podcast, where I get to broker this conversation with folks like you and with other folks that are wanting to learn, right? And that's just the coolest thing. So, man, you took risks, you bet on yourself, and you invested on yourself, and it seems like betting on yourself might be that first line of order, like getting the mindset right about who you are, what you have to offer the world, and then continuing to invest in yourself, and then at some point you got to take a risk, right? Yeah. And now that you got your mind situated, and now that you've got that process of continual learning going, now go do something with it, right? Go all in somewhere, go do something. That's awesome, man. I
can start 100 businesses and fail all 100. I only need to be right once. Right. The math is on my side here, right? I can start up businesses and close them down like that.
I wonder if you could start one business a day.
Yeah.
For a year.
Yep. One business a day.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what would it take, to start one business a day? Man, technology is just, it's leveled everything.
Yeah.
What would it look like to start one business a day for a year, for a month, or you could, I guess maybe that would have been 10xing it, but like, what about one a week, Yeah. Start one business a week, take it from an idea all the way through and take it to market. Right? Yeah. Crazy. All right, man. You haven't done everything right in life, right? You've alluded to some of this, and it's a safe bet because you're a human being, right? So we all make mistakes, and I think one of the cool things about this show too is guys like you are willing to lean into some of their failures, so that the folks that are listening, they don't have to make those same mistakes. Because to the folks that are listening, you're going to have plenty of your own, right? And so be someone who is great. Be someone who learns from the mistakes of others. And so all that to say, man, let's flip the script here. As you look back on the course of your career, what are 1, 2, 3 things that kind of come to the top of your mind as far as like, man, if I could just have that one back. And they're probably ones that you don't have to really dig for. They're probably just kind of surface up above the others. They kind of stand out.
Yeah.
So help us, man. What are those in Chuck's life?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to kind of just bullet point them off, or would you like me to kind of tell a story here? It's up to you.
Oh man, I'm all about the story. So yeah, why don't you do one at a time then?
Okay.
Do one at a time and unpack it for us. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one to kind of, I know I've explained this to you a little bit, but so a couple of years ago, I decided to pretty radically change my career. I went from telecom into actually becoming a licensed mortgage broker. So a little bit of a different change there. And to kind of give you a little bit of context, when I was in telecom, I was a supervisor. I had 6 people underneath me. I was always blowing my goal out of the water. And, it gave me a little bit of a big head, if I'm just being completely honest with you. And so when I jumped into, the mortgage industry, I had a little bit of arrogance about me. I thought, this is going to work out. And I didn't really need to plan anything out. I thought that, because I was so good.
The world has no idea what's coming its way.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I was going to take the mortgage world by storm, before noon. So that led to, one thing I've kind of learned in life is that it's very tough to judge yourself accurately. Everybody's a little bit, biased in favor of themselves, right? So one thing that I learned, in my eventual failure in that venture, I did it for about a year, didn't work out. My advice on that would be, don't just assume that everything's going to work out. Whenever you're going to do anything, make sure that you take the time to kind of plan it and really kind of set those goals and set a plan for what it looks like. That's the mortgage story.
So you say don't just assume everything is going to work out. What did that failure look like in your experience? You hop into the mortgage world, everything's coming. You thought you were going to have the same success that you had in telecom.
Yep.
What didn't happen? Why didn't things work out?
Things didn't work out because I didn't really have a strict schedule that I was going to stick to. I didn't have a plan for how I was going to be successful in that industry. I just kind of thought, I was going to show up, make 5 phone calls. I was going to, partner with all these great real estate agents, and then I was going to have more work than I knew what to do with, because I was such a great salesman. And that was 2 dozen books ago, yeah. And I don't know. So that was kind of the plan, and that eventually led to, I burned through my entire life savings. I had no money by the time that venture was done. I had to go back into telecom, back into a cog in a machine to pay the bills, because I sunk kind of everything that I had behind it, and I didn't give myself a fighting shot at being successful there. Is really what it boils down to. Yeah. Because you need to give yourself an opportunity to be successful, and that means that you have to follow some pretty basic steps in order to kind of make that happen. Yeah.
Well, what would those steps be? What do you think?
The steps would be, come up with a clear vision of where you want to end up. Come up with a rigorous schedule. There's a reason why everybody who's massively successful has a very regimented plan that they live their lives by, and to set goals. Without goals, without some sort of anchor of am I doing what I need to do, you're just kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And if you're just winging it, it's very tough to ever find any real success in anything that you do.
Yeah, to go about it. To go about it in a way that's really compounding, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get into that rhythm, you have the clear vision, and the hard part's holding it, right? The hard part is remembering it, and every day, this is what I'm going for, reminding ourselves of that vision. Mm-hmm. Sticking with a schedule, right? It's easy for a lot of folks to just fall right onto the schedule. but have a schedule that actually works and that's helping you to gain traction in a certain direction. And then goals, things that you're actually tactically working towards,
Yep.
are going to get you there. And none of that requires capital. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have $0 in your bank account, and you could do that, and you could find that you're going to probably have a lot more motivation, to get going, to work and schedule all that kind of stuff. But that could also be the type of thing that someone needs psychologically, mentally, to actually get them to take the action, and to go and actually serve people, actually provide something of real value, right? So that what you take in cash value, what you make on the sale, isn't anywhere near what you're giving them in use value, right?
Yeah.
And that's so important. And did you have like leads coming to you in the telecom world, or did you have to source your own leads? Because I think the mortgage industry is more of like, you probably don't have leads coming to you.
Yeah.
You're having get them. Was stuff coming inbound to you in the telecom world?
Not really. Basically, kind of how it was structured up is that I had 6 people underneath me who their primary function was to do inbound or outbound dialing to drum up leads, and then they kind of fed them to me, and I would close the deal. I would design the solution, do the contracting, kind of everything like that. So I didn't really have to do a lot of the cold calling struggle to get in front of people. I just dealt with the sales side of it, which also kind of gives you a warped perspective of how much work each sale actually takes.
Yeah, if you had 6 people, making 50 calls a day, that's 300 calls.
Yeah.
And now suddenly you're in mortgage and you don't have anyone making those calls for you. So guess what? You get to make 300 calls a day just to try to get the same amount of, it's tough. And without having a plan to do that, that's good. All right, man. Numero dos.
Yeah.
Assuming you had more than one failure.
Yeah. Yep. My second one is actually a much more recent mistake. This actually started when we first started Opus Communications. As we've said before, I've got 2 business partners, Mike and Ryan. I was still playing a little bit on tilt. I don't know if you're a poker fan at all.
Honestly, I would love to know how to play. I've played like once in my life.
Well, I'll rephrase it a little bit for people who may not be, fans of poker. Basically, when you lose a bad hand, they call that playing on tilt, because then you're trying to bet more to try and get that money back that you just lost, right? And they refer to that as playing on tilt. When we started Opus Communications, I hadn't really, mentally got over the failure in the last venture. And because of that, I was a little overprotective over everything. And that caused me to take more on my plate and kind of not trust my partners as much. And so my advice would be, don't go at it alone. When you have other people in your organization, you need to know when you need to step up and get stuff done. And you need to know when it's time to kind of share some of the responsibility. You don't need to go at everything alone. You've got people in your life, whether it's a business situation or anything that, love you and care about you and are going to step up and help you.
Yeah, that's important. And it seems that also anticipates or assumes making sure that you have the partners you can trust. Because if you've been burned in the past or you failed in the past, I can totally understand the tendency to want to try to control things ourselves, because we don't want to maybe have a hard time trusting someone else, or maybe we think that we're the only ones who can possibly get this thing done. And you said there's a time where you got to step up and go after it, just get it done, right? But there's also a time when you have to know and discern when you should delegate the task. And that's really important, to know that you've got people that you can trust to get the task done, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just a matter about, hey, dude, you just got to trust other people. Like, I heard it said once, and I can't even tell you where I came across it, but the idea of like realizing that it might only get done 80% of the way, or from a quality perspective, it might only be like an 80%. but that's better that it gets done and get done at 80% than you trying to do everything yourself and stuff not getting done or even getting done more poorly. The law of diminishing returns. Actually, I think it was Tim Ferriss maybe that talked about it in his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Mm-hmm. He starts to unpack the 80-20 rule and Pareto and all kind of stuff. And the idea of like, if you're going to scale, you're going to have to trust other people. And even if they couldn't do it as well as you, it's better that someone else gets it done 80% of the way qualitatively than you trying to do everything yourself. Yeah. And then everything's starting to suffer and regress from there. Yeah.
Well, we had talked about it a little bit earlier. You know, there's an opportunity cost to every choice that you make in life, right? Yeah. So, I mean, whether that's delegating it out to someone else or, you know, whether that's taking a 3-day vacation, you know, you're always giving up something to get something else. That's kind of just the nature of life.
Yeah. And sometimes sometimes it's hard to quantify that, right? Mm-hmm. What are we actually giving up? Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. And even from a productivity standpoint, actually, again, Grant Cardone really talks about how much, we go into this like conservative mindset, conserve, rather than like spend. Mm-hmm. Or we like it, the other way to say it is we have so much more to gain than we do to lose. And the example that I use, it's like we spend our lives just crawling around on the floor, and it's like, well, I don't want to lose. Like I want to, conserve, and let's just get our expenses down as low as possible and just stay down here, and everything's going to be okay. Well, we weren't meant to crawl around on our bellies on the floor, right? Like you can't you can't fall down much further. You're already on the floor, right? Yeah. If you just stood up and realized, man, we got a cosmos to conquer here. Just like look above you and go for it. We have so much more to gain if we were talking opportunity cost than we do to lose. So if we're making decisions that are just constantly conserving, constantly defensive, we're just living life on the floor. It's no way to grow a business, right? I think it was recently at the TEDx conference, Grant Cardone was talking about how, at one point he was only $50 million in debt, and now he's $900 million in debt, right? And obviously when he says debt, he's talking about not consumer debt, but leverage, right? And there's a principle there in how we can think about life of like, if we want to grow and expand, it does mean taking on various resources, and it does mean in one sense spending, and it doesn't mean spending foolishly, and it doesn't always mean even spending monetarily, but it does mean spending ourselves, taking bigger risks, and seeking to produce versus just protect, right? Would you talk about it in the same way, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really just a mindset, and like getting people to kind of shift that mindset. And when they do, it's a freeing feeling. Yeah. You know what I mean? When you actually finally just get it, that there's nowhere to go but up from here. Right. I mean, that is a powerful feeling, Yeah. That's what gets you up in the morning, like, hey, let's get this done,
Talk to me. Keeps you up at night.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've lost so many hours of sleep just laying in my bed thinking like, man, 10 years from now, Opus Communications is going to be a household name, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
baby. We obviously have to put in the work to get there, but I mean, it's like, can you imagine? You know what I mean? And it's like, I have a chance to build that. Yeah. Me, Yeah. And that's an awesome, awesome feeling.
Yeah, it gets the blood boiling, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's go, totally agree, man. And that's exciting, and we need more of that. I think everyone needs more of that. They need to get their blood boiling. Find out what makes your blood boil. Yeah. Right. And hold on to that, right? Like, and go after it. Like, whatever it is, like, go. Because that's what we need. People that are losing sleep at night because they're so excited about what they're building. Yeah. Right. We need people that are staying up late at night building, right? Because they're so excited about what they're doing, right? Love the vision of 10 years, what could Opus be, right? And then 10x that, right? Right? 10 years from now, how about 2 years from now, right? It's awesome, man.
All right, I want to know, who's next? Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
All right, man, you got a third for us?
Yeah. This one is a little bit more generic, but it's it's definitely something worth saying, and that's don't live in the past. It's easy to get down on mistakes that we've had. I've been guilty of it multiple times in my life, and that's kind of, it zapped my motivation for a while, because I sat back and I thought, like, man, I just lost my whole life savings on a mortgage business that didn't go anywhere, and it's like that kind of took my power away from me, if that kind of makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because I looked back at it and thought, man, if I could only go back 1 year and just stay in telecom, like, imagine where I'd be now. And it's like that kind of, that fear and that kind of living in the past, that's what stopped me from going and, starting Opus a lot sooner. It stopped me, I was honestly depressed for a couple of months after that, where it was tough to really get motivated to do anything, because it was just an overwhelming kind of crushing feeling. And it's like, if I could go back to that point, I would realize that that was 1 year out of my life, and that doesn't define what the rest of my life is going to be. That doesn't limit me in anything, right? You could lose everything today, and you could build it all back in a year, or something,
Oh, for sure. I mean, think about it. I mean, people pay $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 for 4 years of their life, right, to go to college. Let's just say you had $100,000 of life savings at the time that you went to be a mortgage broker, and you lost it all. Well, if you're thinking big, right? If you're thinking, I think in the right way to think, you'd say, yeah, but Grant Cardone's managing $1.7 billion. Like, I hardly lost anything.
Yeah.
Like, when we look at it in that perspective, and part of getting out of the past, it maybe has a lot to do with the mindset and that vision and the possibilities and what we stand to gain, right? What's out there to conquer, not just what we've lost, right? Yeah. And we come to realize, I could gain 1,000 times what I lost. I'm not going to stop. Yep. Because I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna invest in myself, and I'm eventually gonna get there, right? And here you are with Opus Communications, like solving a real massive problem in an industry that's not going anywhere, right? And that's awesome. Like, and had you stopped, right, where would you be today, right? Yeah. But in a sense, you saw I've got so much more to gain, 1,000 times more to gain than I did losing, right? But that's not easy. It's not easy looking at the loss. It's not easy losing whatever it is what was lost. And it's good to separate, do the post-mortem, kind of just analyze the failure. Great. Then let's be done with it, right? Yep. And don't go back to it. Yep.
And that is a very difficult thing to do, because, consciously we all know that you've got to keep moving forward, but it's tough when you're in a cycle to break it. And like I said, if I could just reach out and kind of like tell that to kind of people who may be going through the same thing, kind of that depression associated with a loss. I mean, stuff does get better, and you never really lose until you quit. Until you quit, there's always a chance that you can still win. Yeah.
Yeah. Lombardi has that quote, "We didn't lose, we just ran out of time." Right? Yeah. And man, until we die, you haven't lost yet. Yep. And I think sometimes people die a lot earlier in life, metaphorically, because they've given up on themselves, right? But they're still breathing. They're still fogging a mirror. It's like, go do something, right? Go win. Go fight to win, right? Yeah. There's a book I'm into right now called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, which really talks about playing for results that are greater than just yourself, right? It's not just about like your lifetime and becoming the CEO of a company, and then when you're done, screw Opus or whatever. It's actually building something greater that's going to outlast you. That's going to be, others are going to take and go farther than you could, because one day you're not going to be here, right? And seeing giving ourselves to that kind of life work that actually we don't think in quarters, we think in generations, right? Awesome concept, and I think a lot more. It's not common in our day and age for businesses to think like that, but you get the rare cases that do. The Apples of the world, right? Guinness beer was a great example. things like that, to where it's like, yeah, like you're not done. You're playing an infinite game here. It's not just about like a stopping point and then you've reached your final potential. It's like you're still fogging a mirror. You can do more, so go do it. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's awesome, man.
I'm actually not familiar with Guinness's story, but I think after this I'm going to have to go look him up.
Yeah, I'll have to check. There's a really good biography that kind of sketches out that story. I think it was recently recommended. I've heard the story before, but the things that they were doing in their time a couple hundred years ago, the way that the companies were caring for their employees and giving and just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. They actually, I think, started a lot of the trend of, sick time and employee benefits and a lot of that kind of stuff. They were the ones that kind of actually pioneered how they could be giving to their employees at the brewery. Just cool. Bunch of different things that they did. Amazing when you have that kind of vision and it's something bigger than yourself and how you can impact the world greater than just beer, right?
Yeah.
Although beer is pretty impactful, right? Let's be honest. So cool. I'll find that and I'll send it your way. So
okay, awesome,
cool. All right, man. So if you were sitting down for coffee with a guy and he was like, Chuck, I could see myself doing what you're doing. I have got the entrepreneurial spirit that you said you had, and I listened to your show on what not to do. And man, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And would you just help me to kind of maybe figure out a little bit of a direction or path in life, and then give me a swift kick in the teeth to start down that way. Like assuming you don't want him to needlessly suffer. You probably share some of what to do right, some of what to avoid. Like you just shared with us, but you also probably help him maybe go about things in a little bit different way than what you did, so he could avoid those failures. So, looking back, like how would you counsel someone just starting out to do things differently, or even younger Chuck? What would you tell younger Chuck to do to avoid the same mistakes or failures that you experienced?
Yeah, I mean, if I could give myself some advice when I was younger, I definitely would have told myself to kind of to believe in myself a little bit more when I was younger, and to really kind of chase things that I knew were to be true. Yep. I spent a lot of time younger kind of trying to conform to what I was supposed to be, and there was always that kind of that cognitive dissonance between like who I was and kind of wanting to march to the beat to my own drummer, and kind of how I thought I was supposed to be. So that caused a lot of friction. If I were to give myself some practical advice, to definitely network earlier in life. It wasn't really until I started Opus that I was working hard at kind of getting to know more people and attending more networking events. And the statement, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I mean, that is more true than you will ever realize until you kind of start getting in a position where you own your own business, or you kind of interact with more people in that type of environment.
I've heard it said that your network is your net worth.
Yeah,
right?
I believe it.
And that's not about using people, right? If you're doing networking right, you're giving more than you're taking, and everyone's giving more than they're taking, which is cool. It's really powerful fabric or web or grid. It's huge, and who knows the opportunities that can come from that, I've heard it said, really when it comes to your personal brand, there's know how and know who, right? Like you know how and know who. So you have to know something, right? What's your niche? What's your business? What's your knowledge? What are you going after? What problem are you solving in the world? How are you doing it? You have to. Where's the know how? Like there's that, but then you need the know who, right? Because just like you said earlier, don't go at it alone, right? Even when you're starting a business, even when you're starting in life, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, which we all do, right?
Yeah.
Don't go alone. Go with others, right? Take others with you. So, awesome, man. That's great.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, so we're set to go. We're refueled. There's I was telling you, Chuck, in cigar subculture, there's this kind of underground movement of pairing a cigar with classic Dr. Pepper. And I guess what makes it classic, it's real sugar, not corn syrup. Mm-hmm. And apparently it's just amazing. So one of these days I know you had mentioned you're not necessarily a cigar guy, but we can change that.
Yeah.
And when we do, we'll pair it with a Dr. Pepper. So
is this your first time pairing them, or have you already?
This is my second.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done RC Cola in the past, and that's great. Root beer, but and I'm not usually a soda guy, but there's something about, I'm not sure if it's like the sugar. It just goes well with the cigar. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great. So.
Yeah, so, this isn't something like you just heard it on the internet. You have tried it, so you can personally speak to it.
I've tried it. Yeah, I can speak to it. And Glenn Sherman's episode, which is probably at the time that you guys are listening to this, is probably already up. Glenn's the owner here at Prohibition, and he turned me onto it. He's been a career fireman here in the city of Green Bay for 28 years, but he's been running Prohibition Cigar Lounge for 10.
Wow.
And so he knows so much about the history of cigars and the culture and all that kind of stuff. And really, one thing that he loves is about the cigar culture. It's actually this type of thing, where it's face to face. You're not buried in your phone.
Yeah.
And guys are coming together, and you could be at completely different walks of life. You could disagree on politics and religion and every sort of thing. You could walk out and find a new friend. It's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's hard to find that in our culture today and age, like a place where it's like, hey, it's okay to disagree, agree to disagree type of thing, and still, make a new friend. So it's just a cool place to be, and really kind of becoming a cornerstone of the downtown district here, which is cool. So it's I was sharing with you, it's a quiet place I come and crank out some work, or a great place to be able to sit down and have a conversation like this, which is cool.
I have to say, this is my first time here because I'm not a big cigar guy, but I have to tell you, I'm impressed. It is just a beautiful, beautiful place. And it's quiet, inviting. I could definitely see, coming here with a group of people and kind of just sitting down and just hanging out.
Yeah. Do that. Guys come here to crank out some work. They'll take their clients here, wine and dine them, have some fun. Friday nights, folks come through if they're going on date night. Maybe the gal doesn't smoke, but the gal have a cigar, and then they'll be on their way afterwards. Or just cool. So, yeah, man. Well, good. I'm going to throw you through the gauntlet here, which is fun. And we are inescapably shaped. In life, we're influenced by so many different people and things. And I'm curious for you, man. In your life and your experience, you've probably been influenced and impacted by several different folks. You've mentioned a few, in our conversation. But I'm curious, who's the one that kind of stands out above all others, that if you took this person out of your life, you wouldn't be the GOAT of Green Bay that you are today, right? You wouldn't be who you are today.
That person for me would be my dad.
Cool.
My dad is a small business owner here in Green Bay as well. And I actually watched him build our business. He worked at Appleton Papers full time.
Yeah.
And he tinted cars in our garage. He owns TNT Tinting.
Cool. Okay.
Which is now a much larger business, and they've been around for a long time. And I watched him, as a kid, start out tinting cars in the garage and working at Appleton Papers full time. And I really saw the dedication and the work ethic that he had to it. And obviously, eventually, he quit Appleton Papers, took a leap of faith on himself, and started that company. And that really kind of inspired me, watching somebody that I look up to, starting their own company and kind of forging their own path.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what gave me that ambition and that drive to follow in his footsteps and do it. And, you know, seeing the amount of work that someone put in to do that too, and seeing the pride that he had in building it. I mean, I still remember when my dad bought his first building that he had TNT in. And I mean, it's like, that is something that I will never forget as long as I live.
Yeah.
You know, just the look on my dad's face, and it's like, he did it, you know?
Yeah.
And I wanted to feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and how it shaped you. And you might not even know half the ways that it shaped you. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. It's I've talked before about, you know, like how it's kind of like, it's like human nature is like being in a garden. You know, we have so much, you know, potential and capacity wrapped up in us from birth, you know, as that seed, if you think about, and then that seed, if you give it sun and water, it grows and blossoms and becomes what it always was meant to be, you know. And human life is like that, and so our environments are so important, and what shapes us are so important, and we don't even remember half those experiences from our early life, you know. And yet it's amazing. And so having that, being in that kind of entrepreneurial environment, watching your dad go to build something, really cool to see how his fingerprints are all over you, you know, which is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But both physically, I suppose, because you're his flesh and blood, you know. But just even in his life's work, and now you're going in and doing things, and you're building things, and awesome. I'm sure he's probably very, very proud.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
It's awesome to hear. All right, man. So I could care less about the best advice that you've ever heard. I want to know what's the worst advice that you hear floating around these days. So
The worst advice.
Either that you've heard sometime along the way, or that you kind of just hear floating around on TikTok today or whatever it is, or whatever social channels you're on.
See, that's a good one, you know, because everybody does always get asked the best advice, and I feel like that's a lot easier here. It's actually gonna take me a minute here to come up with something.
You should own a Honda.
Yeah. Who said that? The worst advice that I've ever heard. Man, it would put me on the spot here.
And you don't even have to rank it. It doesn't have to be like the worst, but what's just some bad advice, you know?
Yeah.
Bad advice you kind of hear floating around, or that's been given to you along the way, and then maybe you followed it and it didn't turn out so well for you because you took the advice.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to expand on this a little bit, but, you know, just the idea of, you know, just do what makes you happy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people would love to do and it'd make them happy, but it's not always the best advice. I mean, you need to kind of temper the momentary kind of satisfaction of what makes you happy with kind of what the long-term goals and the long-term vision are. You know, when I hear the advice, do what makes you happy, I think of that as kind of being very short-sighted, kind of live in the moment type mindset. And I think that as you kind of grow up and you mature, you realize that, you know, your life is longer than the next 6 months or the next 2 weeks. You know, it's a whole process, and you need to really work on establishing these long-term goals. I'm sorry I keep going back to that, but it's just something I really feel passionate about. And kind of making sure that you're honest and true to yourself in getting where you say you want to be. You know, it's having your actions reflect your desire and what you say your desire is. So don't live in the moment. Don't do whatever makes you happy.
Don't dance like no one's watching, because they are.
Because they are.
Yeah, that's good, man. And you had mentioned earlier that we should do things that we enjoy, and so I think it's helpful to draw the distinction here, right? Because people might be like, "Well, didn't you say earlier that we should do things that we enjoy doing?" And I think you hit it on the head when you say "do what makes you happy." You're meaning exactly like living in the moment, instant gratification, right? Sometimes there's not, you know, sometimes being up late or getting up early to do things that we need to get done those don't necessarily make us happy. It's not instantly gratifying.
Yeah.
But what we're exercising is a delayed gratification, and it's wrapped up in that bigger vision, right?
Yeah.
And we've done the reverse engineering, we've done the math, and we know that we need to take these steps, these goals to get there, and that's what allows us to enjoy it, to actually go find real happiness in life, because the real happiness is not living in the moment. The real happiness is not just delayed gratification, doing whatever. We'd probably destroy ourselves 10 times over if we did that.
Yeah.
It's actually realizing what makes us happy is doing what we're good at, doing things that we enjoy, and doing things that there's actually a market demand where we can have an economic opportunity to, and those three things come together, and we cast out long-term vision, we work backwards, we set out the goals, and we're going after a real sense of fulfillment, a real sense of happiness. And that's very, very different than, oh yeah, well, why don't you go do that, or pick something new every day.
I think that you hit it on the head. I think that there's a difference between, the happiness and the instant gratification, because there's a lot of times where what is going to instantly gratify you isn't going to make you happy in the long run. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's something that I think it comes from being really honest with yourself and kind of, knowing yourself and, okay, what does actually happiness look like for me, and what does fulfillment look like for me? And for each person, that could be wildly different. Some people, all it takes to give them a sense of fulfillment is, to have a great family, or maybe it's something else for a different person. And it's kind of just taking a moral inventory of what is that for me, and then making your actions consistent with that. And sometimes that means putting off the instant gratification, which kind of, it seems like our culture is like famous for now, right? Everything is, what can I get my fingertips on right this second, and really living in the moment might be a better way of saying it. And life is a long journey, and if you're not kind of taking the steps each day and each week to kind of get you to that sense of fulfillment and what truly matters to you, you're going to end up a really unhappy person down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems we use YOLO in the wrong way, right? Like, it's like, oh, let's just go do this right now because YOLO. You only live once. Well, you shouldn't do that because you only live once. Like, you only live once, so don't just constantly chase the instant gratification, the quick fix, all that kind of stuff. And that's that part of like that kind of trifecta of, hey, what are you good at, what do you enjoy, and what are your economic opportunities? If we only focus on the things that we enjoy, great, but those things might not ever be anything more than a hobby, right? And if we constantly kept on going all in on only something we enjoy, but we weren't maybe good at it, or there weren't really economic opportunities there, we're going to have it's going to be a hard life, a hard road, right? And so that doesn't mean we couldn't have that thing as a hobby. But there's that piece. But then, we live very much in a fast food culture, and that it seems like that mindset, kind of expands to a lot of things. Like, well, I just want it, and I want it now, and I'm not willing to wait for it. Goes back to like, it could be someone, maybe someone who's listening is in a job right now. They're working for someone else. Maybe they don't love it, but maybe they're not all in, and maybe they need to give it another year, right, and go all in.
Yeah.
It might not be what they want. The easier thing might just be to quit and go somewhere else. That could be the right decision, but they also could be going after that instant gratification when they're not really all in. They haven't really invested in themselves, bet on themselves with where they're currently at. And if you haven't done that with where you're currently at, then it kind of begs the question, like, how do you know you're going to do that on your next venture, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yep, that makes perfect sense.
You could just kind of keep on repeating the patterns or the cycle,
And, with that, kind of to touch on something that you'd said there, everything takes work, whether it's a business or a relationship. Like, everything takes work, and you need to be willing to kind of put that work in. And that means that sometimes everything isn't great. We talked about it a little bit earlier with some administrative stuff, It's like that work kind of, it needs to get put in. To build anything takes effort and takes work, and sometimes that means you have to prioritize things in a different way that isn't, well, just what do I want right now? You know, sometimes you have to stay up late to get something done, not because you don't want to sleep, but because it needs to get done. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like having that willpower and kind of having that, you know, maturity to really say, you know, no, we're going to put that off in lieu of something that I might enjoy less, but just because it has to be done. Kind of deal.
Yeah, and long ago, in the days of kings, right, when they would go off to battle, they weren't. It was very common they wouldn't sleep with their wives. Mm-hmm. They were very focused on the mission. They were very focused on conquering. They wouldn't feast, right? And you saw people that the kingdoms that lost the wars were those that were just giving themselves to pleasures and all that kind of stuff, and their minds were completely taken off the battle. Mm-hmm. And it changed how they fought, and they lost, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a really interesting thing that you see in different cultures and civilizations that became a law. Like when you go out to war, you know, soldiers don't do these things. It's really interesting. And so I think, you know, for everyone that is aspiring to build, especially for entrepreneurs, you have that mission, you have that battle in front of you that you're going after, right? In that sense. And there's a time in which it's really, really important to have that kind of focus and that drive, and to say no to really good things, right? For the sake of really focusing on the mission.
Yeah.
So for me, like, I'd rather go to bed with my wife at 10 o'clock, whatever it is. There's stuff to be done, and I get to do it, and it's a great thing. It's on my plate. It's full of things. They might not be the tasks that are my most favorite things ever, but hey, guess what? I really believe in what I'm doing. I'm all in on it, and I'm going to stay up till 2 a.m. or doing whatever, or I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and crank away, or whatever it might be, you know? Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I think we need more of that. We need more of that kind of clarity. It seems like we are pretty weak in our desire some days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where we'd rather just kind of coast through life, have a path chosen for us because it's just easier. We don't have to do the work. But that seems to me to be pretty lazy, at least from a mindset perspective.
Yeah.
And it ties back into that moral obligation for us to be successful with whatever we have in life when we give. And it doesn't mean everyone's going to be a billionaire, right? But if we're all striving to use what we've got to develop ourselves and our abilities in service for the world around us, I really think it's going to be a blessing for everybody. And sometimes the desire just to want to do something at the spur of the moment or impulsively maybe comes from that sense of, like, they just really want a sense of freedom and options in their life. And but they're not going to get it by just never having any discipline.
Yeah.
You know, they could eventually, like, for instance, like with Opus, like, you could build a really successful business, and you could have incredible options. You've built wealth and a lot of options with what you can do and time, all that kind of stuff. Exciting. Maybe you're going to go and parlay that into a new business, a new venture. Who knows, 10, 20 years down the road, whatever it might be. But it's having that sense of delayed gratification. And like you said before, it keeps going back to those, what is the vision? And then what are the goals, you know? And
that kind of discipline and that kind of mindset is especially important for young entrepreneurs who are kind of just starting out. Because one thing that you're going to find when you have your own business, that you get a lot more freedom. But at that point, you've just got more rope to kind of hang yourself with, right?
More responsibility.
You don't have a boss who's telling you, hey, you need to get in here at 9 o'clock. So you don't show up until noon, and then you don't actually get any work done until 2, and all of a sudden, before you know it, like, your numbers are dropping, everything's kind of going. I mean, you want to make sure that you develop these kind of habits, really, and set them in stone, because as you grow in your career and you kind of free yourself up and you've got that freedom, you want to make sure that you have the habits and the rituals to really make sure that you stay on course. And discipline, self-discipline, as obvious as it sounds, it comes from the self. Kyle, you can't give me self-discipline. I have to get that.
Oh, agree to disagree. Teasing. I'll give you self-discipline. I've heard it said that if we don't discipline ourselves, someone else will. In the sense of, like, if we just live reckless lives, the world is going to discipline us, right? Think about it like if we're foolish with our money, we squander it all. We're going to be disciplined by the world, and we're going to be bankrupt and broke and whatever. We create certain habits. If they're destructive habits, that's going to be reinforced. And really, all government starts with self-government, right? Because the individual makes up the family, which makes up the other spheres in life, whether it's like an organization, a company, a local church, a civil government, right? And if you got a bunch of people together that aren't governing themselves, that's going to be a chaotic corporation or body of people or whatever it's going to be. I agree more. I think one of the great things in our day and age is to learn how to ever better govern ourselves, discipline ourselves. And I think if every man was doing that, if every woman was doing that, I think so many societal problems could go away.
Oh yeah,
people taking full ownership, governing themselves. I think that's huge.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
All right, man. It's rush hour. From Green Bay to Beijing, billions of people stuck in a traffic jam, especially Green Bay because we have crazy traffic here. And they're all listening to What Not to Do with the GOAT of Green Bay, Chuck Dahle. And they look up and they see a billboard, and wouldn't you know it, it's Chuck's billboard. What message did they see? What message, Chuck, do you want the world to see?
What message do I want them to see? Are billboards still a thing even?
You can't answer my question with a question.
Yeah. Oh, man. You got the fine print on the rules down here. No, I mean, if I had a billboard, for my company, I would want it to say transparent, honest partner. Because I feel like those are three values that Opus as an organization really strive to, and that's why we created the company. That's our core statement. We are a partner to the businesses that we serve. We're honest, we're transparent, and that's really the message that any of my clients, past, present, and future, that's always the impression that I would like to give them of my organization and what we stand for and how we serve them.
That's good, man. And it seems like that, just based on our conversation today, that's really rings true for who you are as a person. Would you say that? I mean, the same things that you're embodying as a company, those are near and dear to you because that's who you are as a person. Transparent, honest, and you're seeking to partner with folks in life in that regard. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that your company is always shaped by the person at the top, and those kind of values and those ethics flow through your company no matter how large of an organization it is. The truth is, if there's any kind of bad practices or anything like that starts at the top, or else it would be corrected. And that's something that no matter where Opus's destiny lies, that's what I always want to convey to my people and to my clients, most importantly. Like I said, my business reputation is the number one most important thing to me, just because I feel like that reputation and who you are as a company, that follows you through life. And when I see 10 years down the road and I see Opus as a massive major player in our space, like I want it to be a company that people look at and they go like, yeah, those guys, like, they're honest about it, they're transparent. I don't want to have the same kind of stereotypes that a lot of the telecom industry has. Like, I want to be a benchmark for other companies to look at and go, we need to be more like them.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And the reality is that you are your business, right? You are the business, right? And it'd be a pretty unhappy thing in life if we as an individual were working in a business or owned a business, and those two things were completely at odds, right? From a values perspective.
Yeah.
And that's what I love what you're saying. It's like, this is who you are. You can't divorce your business from who you are.
Yeah.
And they both feed off each other. So it's like that. It's like what's true for you is true for your business. What's true for your business is true for you. You are transparent. You're honest, and you are aligning yourself as a partner, not someone who's just trying to get ahead, take advantage of folks in life, personally, professionally, right? But you're real with folks. You're honest with them, and you want their best in life, and you want to help them get there as a partner, that's awesome, man. It's a good billboard.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Get ready for the billions of phone calls.
Yeah. Yep. Right.
All right, man. Bonus round. 3 books. They don't have to be your favorite, but 3 books that you think are really impactful, kind of paradigm-shifting books that people would do well to read sooner than later. And they'll talk about opportunity cost. The longer that they wait to read these books, the worse off their lives are going to be.
Okay, so the first one, I've already mentioned it, Sell or Be Sold. I think that is just a great book because sales it does a very good job of, like I said, explaining how sales plays a role in your everyday life. And I think that it's a skill that's really underrated. And I think that if you read that book, you would realize how sales and kind of being able to convey yourself and kind of explain your side of the story, how impactful that is in your life in a variety of different situations, from interpersonal to professional. I think that book does a very, very good job of really showing a underrated skills importance. So that would be number 1. It's by Grant Cardone. The second one would be Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I was actually gonna recommend that book to you earlier, but there you go. So.
Yeah, excellent book about setting goals and kind of just motivating yourself. It's a book that there is no one out there who couldn't read it and get something from it.
Oh yeah. And a different approach to habits too.
Yeah. Yep. So then my third book, I'm going to say it would be Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. And that book, it's not designed, I wouldn't recommend it because it's a sales book. I like that book because it does a very good job of explaining different frames that people walk in with. And I'm not sure, have you ever read that book?
I haven't, no? Never heard of it.
Well, Oren goes into like a really scientific explanation for kind of how the human brain functions and how our different interactions are shaped by different neurological effects. And he talks about different frames that people kind of carry around with them, and kind of how we do frame matching, and it goes very, very deep down the rabbit hole of kind of interpersonal interactions. And he doesn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that in a sales perspective. It's more of a book about recognizing different frames that people kind of walk in with, and that I think that any book that kind of helps you understand people is worth a read, because obviously you interact with how many people a day. If you can kind of start recognizing patterns, recognizing why this is happening, kind of different frames and different kind of assumptions that people kind of carry with them, it kind of helps you break these frames down and get to more of a personal, honest type conversation, a more personal level conversation with the people that you interact with.
Yeah, super important. I've heard some different takes on, I want to say it's more of like, people call it like personality or different profiles of people that you're selling to. It sounds like this is even deeper than that. Like maybe underlying when you say frame, is it kind of like, in a sense, like how they see the world, and like you said, certain assumptions that they might be bringing to the table. and things that could be really barriers to communicating with them, or to really effectively like positioning or pitching whatever your solution is in such a way that they actually are hearing it the way that you want them to hear it, or to like really understand it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes certain things that we have, presuppositions or assumptions or frames through how we look at the world, can actually keep us from really understanding what someone else is trying to say. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it spot on, and just kind of a real world example in my business. I work very closely with CEOs and also CTOs,
Yeah.
right? And you need to understand that there's a different frame that both of those people kind of look through.
No.
Right? Yeah, yeah, believe it or not, right? So it's, if you're talking to a CTO the way that you would talk to a CEO, you know, you're not communicating in a way that really makes that conversation worthwhile, and you're not able to get down to the level of what's important to them. How do they see things? Like, and if you can understand how someone else sees things, you can reach them at a much more personal level and a deeper level. When you can finally figure out what motivates people and what moves people, I mean, that's where you really have something. And Pitch Anything by Orrin Claff.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me to emphasize that in Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he talks about how the most successful companies move past the how and the what, and that deeper underlying, they're inspiring their consumers, their clients, to that greater vision, that greater purpose. So Apple, for instance, took the power from, that once only corporations had, and they put it into the pocket of an individual, right? Think about how powerful the iPhone is, right?
Oh, yeah.
And once upon a time, only corporations had that kind of power, right? And people were inspired by that, right? And it seems like this book is achieving something similar. It's when you're working and conversing with someone else that you want to partner in business with, you have to know ultimately what's that underlying source of inspiration that they're aspiring to, that you can help to show how your solution, service, product really aligns with that. Otherwise, you could just be talking to a brick wall in that sense. That's really interesting. And so it would seem a very important book when we talk about, hey, read this sooner than later.
Yeah.
Right. Get these books on a reading list. We'll have them linked in the show notes so folks can pick them up off of Amazon or whatever, get them quick. And Amazon Prime time.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, this has been awesome, man. Such a great conversation. Yeah, it seems like in some ways we're cut from the same cloth, and next time we just need to get a stick in your mouth, and we'll go from there.
Hey, I'll be back. I'll be back.
Awesome. If people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about you, grab a cup of coffee, learn from you, or do business with you, man, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can check me out on LinkedIn, Charles, Dahle. I'm pretty active there. You can also go ahead and check out our business page, Opus Communications, LLC on LinkedIn. Or you can go ahead and call me directly. My number is 920-264-3543.
You want your phone out in public?
Oh, yeah. Hey, man, I'll talk to anybody. I will talk to anybody.
That's a Grant Cardone thing. If people don't, if people aren't calling me, they don't know me.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. I would have people who would, they'd go ahead and, when I worked at my last telecom company, and they'd be like, oh, this customer's really upset. They hung up on me. I will go ahead and I'll call you back. What's up? I'll talk to anybody about anything at any time.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Awesome. Chuck, this has been so great. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Great conversation with Chuck, the GOAT of Green Bay. we were joking about that before off air, and so I thought I'd throw it in there. But Chuck, just a great guy. Those guys are doing some awesome things at Opus, and really, really excited for what's ahead of them. But let's recap here. What did Chuck tell us not to do? First, don't just assume everything is going to work out. Don't just assume everything is going to work out. You have to plan for black swan events, and it's kind of funny because because at the time of that I'm talking right now, we're experiencing the coronavirus, lockdown, shutdown, etc. Life as we know it has fundamentally changed. And how can you anticipate that, right? You can't know that that's going to happen, but you can assume that something's going to go wrong. There's going to be something that you can't account for, so that you can't plan for, but you can at least try to hedge for that thing. I've heard it in a positive sense called planned spontaneity. Like, we're going to set aside a day and just be spontaneous. Well, you plan for that, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen on that day, right? Maybe a similar thing in a negative sense as you're thinking through hedging and mitigating risk. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to derail you or what possibly could, but you can try to plan for it the best that you can, so that if and when it comes, you don't suffer unnecessarily for it, right? So don't just assume everything is going to work out. Plan for worst case scenarios, tease those out, get other folks around you that have the insight, can help to speak into that situation, play devil's advocate, etc. Secondly, don't go at it alone. Don't go at it alone. Man, we're communal creatures. We're not meant to go at it alone in the first place. I think it's goofy just to isolate ourselves completely. And it's one of the cool things now to see, how people are finding ways to express community, to express hope and encourage one another. Really, really cool. But when it comes to business and life, don't go at it alone. Delegate, right? I like the threefold pattern that Chuck gave us, vision, schedule, goals. Vision, schedule, goals. One thing that I do is kind of run things through a funnel. Eliminate, automate, delegate, or do, right? So first of all, when something comes across the plate, can it be eliminated, right? Is it even necessary in the first place? Can we just toss it? No? Okay. Well, can it be automated? Does someone have to do this, or can something do this, right? No? Okay. Well, delegate it. Who can handle this, right? And if no one else can handle it, that means it's something that I have to do, right? And it finally makes it through that funnel, ends up on my plate. So eliminate, automate, delegate, do. Feel free to take that, trademark it, brand it, whatever. I don't really care. It's a great tool, really, really helpful for me. Don't go at it alone. Figure out who you can delegate to, who can help. You've heard it said, if you want to go, fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others. Go with others. It's worth it. Don't go at it alone. 3, finally, don't live in the past. Don't live in the past. This is one of those things that falls in the category of things we can't control, right? And so we can get stuck there trying to change, or we become anxious about things that really we can't control anymore. The decision has been made, right? And now we're stuck with the consequences, but we can learn. We don't have to make the same mistake, but we are making that same mistake if we stay stuck in the past. What is that fundamental mistake? It's trying to control things we have no control over. We can't change that, right? We can learn from it and move on and hope that we can make better decisions with the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding that's gained. Staying back in the past ain't gonna help you, right? It's not gonna help you to go forward to have success. Get out of the past, and I would extend that principle not just to don't live in the past, but man, don't live in the land of things that you can't control. And I'll just leave you to think about that one in your life. What are things that are outside of your control, and don't live there? Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it, right? 10% what happens to you, so 10% what's outside of your control, 90% how you react to it, right? You're in charge of your attitude. You're in charge of how you're going to respond, right? You can't control that 10%, the things that happen, right? But you can control the domino effect of the rest of your life, how things are going to fall out from there, right? That's what you can control. Focus on that. It's not the past. Don't live in the past. All right, well, I want to thank you so much for listening. Man, this podcast is about you. It's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. And I'm just so excited. I continue to get more feedback from folks that are networking. They're doing business with one another, which is so cool. They're being helped. They're being encouraged. They're sharing it, kind of that trickle effect. And it's just awesome. My main marketing strategy is really word of mouth. And so I love seeing how things are growing because you guys are finding real value. And that's so encouraging to me. A couple of things. So continue to share. If you haven't already, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. It's super helpful getting all these awesome stories out. And let me know who you want on the podcast, right? Would love. No name is too small. No name is, excuse me. too big. If they're a good fit, entrepreneur, leader, public figure that has had success, but also been in the trenches, they've got some failures to share, get them in touch with me. Let's go from there. If you're a company and you think you've got, really a lot of value to add to this community, let's sit down and talk about what it would look like to partner together to that end. And man, just exciting things. And even brainstorming what's to come, some really exciting things, maybe some live events, maybe some things that we can do, bringing people together, whether that's actually going to be in person or virtually or both. So if you'd love to do like a what not to do live, like be part of an event, sit in on a conversation like I've been having, but you can be there and you can eventually ask your own questions and all that kind of stuff. If you think that's an awesome idea, let me know. I thought I'd plant the seed out there and see, just give me some feedback. What do you guys think? Or what's an idea that you have where we could take and scale what not to do past the podcast here to bring even more value and extend the impact? Would love to talk about that. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.